All right, everybody, welcome to another edition of the OUTFAST Realty Podcast. Today, we have one of our really good friends and referral partners in the house. We have Rick Melero, the founder, CEO, Chief, what'd you call it, Rick?
Bottle Cook and Washer.
Bottle Cook and Washer from His Capital Funding out of Orlando. They are a hard money lender anywhere in the state of Florida. I think you guys are in Georgia now, too.
Yep.
So that's really exciting news. We also have Sam Alley in the house from His Capital Funding as well. Sam, what's your title these days?
Hello, everyone.
You're business development?
Vice President of Corporate Development now.
Boom.
Now it's time to grow.
There you go. Let's ramp it up. All right, guys. So we have Rick in the house today because, as you guys know, on this particular podcast that we record here at our office, that means that Rick's going to be our speaker tonight at our TB-RIA main meeting. So this podcast is really designed for the people that cannot make it to the TB-RIA main meeting because of scheduling conflicts, or maybe you're not in the Tampa Bay area, but you want to hear the amazing stuff that Rick has for us tonight. Just like Rod Cleef did for us last month, which was awesome, and it was a really good presentation, really good message, and I know you guys are going to bring it today too. So thank you guys for being on the show, taking time coming from Orlando. I know traffic is a mother to get over here, so thanks for weathering that storm. Yeah. So while we get started, yeah, you're good, Taylor. Thank you. Thank you. So I want you guys to tell us a little bit about yourself, how you guys got started in real estate. What was it that got you guys going in real estate in the first place? Many moons ago, I'm sure.
Yeah, just a couple moons ago. Actually, when I first started, to give you a little bit of a background history, I actually, believe it or not, for those who know me, I was a youth pastor. And what that means is I was making a really good living, not making any money, but making an impact in the people's lives. And so I got to the point in my career where I got burnt out, and I really felt that the work of the ministry had hindered the work within me. And so I really decided that I wanted to make a big change. And so, to spare you all the details, I had an incredible encounter where I actually prayed, and I'm like, God, show me what to do, because the moment I leave this ministry, I've got no home, I've got no money, and I've got problems. And sure enough, one of the girls in our youth, without me asking anybody, within probably 15 minutes of that prayer, I get a phone call from a lady named Suman, which I have a feeling she might actually be here tonight.
Oh, cool.
Which is why I'm bringing this up.
Oh, awesome.
And so Suman actually was a small-time real estate investor in Tampa, Florida. And she was buying mobile homes and renting them. And she was about to actually rent this particular property. And as she was walking by the house, she felt like somebody put in her heart, she needed to call me and say, Rick, you know what? I feel like as I prayed for this particular mobile home and what I was going to do, I need to give it to you. You need to live here for free as long as you need to. And so that was my answer. As you can imagine, I'm bawling, saying, are you kidding me? So here I am now living for free for this lady. I stayed there for about 90 days. And it was in that little mobile home that I got the first experience and encounter with an investor. And I started doing the research. And that's where the inspiration of real estate began. Okay. Over 15 years ago now. Isn't that crazy?
So what did you start off doing in real estate then? I think you started off as a wholesaler, right?
I began as a wholesaler, simply just I didn't have the resources. And I realized that obviously you can make some money real quick turning it. And I very quickly realized that as I was getting better at wholesaling and really putting real deals together, not just throwing crap on the wall and seeing if somebody would buy, when I really cared about what I did and I started building volume, meaning I got to a point at some points we were doing close to 30 properties a month.
Wow.
And so we had this machine going. We were traveling all over the nation doing seminars and teaching people. And when I got to that stage, I had a meeting with a gentleman who actually, point blank, I thought I was the man. And he said, well, so you're working for tips. And he really challenged my entire game. And so you can imagine, I just did 45 minutes about how great Rick is and all these deals we're doing, and this guy just popped my bubble in 2 seconds. So aside from wanting to just slap him in the face and say, who are you? I actually said, well, what do you do? And so he really changed the way that I thought about things. He really showed me what an investor really is. Mm-hmm. And so that challenged me to really step out and really start taking some steps towards actually being an investor. And so I started taking my savings, investing in income producing real estate, getting into commercial. And boy, am I glad I did, because then all of a sudden 2008 hit, right? And what's interesting about that season is had I not had those other commercial projects, our company would have been bankrupt. You wouldn't even be talking to his. Yeah. And so it's really powerful to see that. So we've kind of gone through the process from wholesaling to now being a lender and doing so many other things. We're just so excited. We love real estate.
There was a key word that he said in that entire thing that stuck out to me. I don't know if you guys caught it. He said in that season. Rick, explain to me what you mean by that season. I know what it means, but for our listeners that don't understand what that means by season, explain that. Because I know you're going to dive into that quite a bit tonight.
Oh, absolutely. Well, one of the things, that most people who lost their shirt in the real estate industry, and I feel bad. I still feel for some of the good friends I had. They were making $400,000 a year. And to go from that to now having to work at McDonald's because you've got nothing, you're going bankrupt, and you didn't set the strategy. I mean, I had some really tough stories to tell you from friends who didn't listen to the seasons, right? And so really, when you look at real estate, it's all about a cycle. It's cyclical. And if you're smart and you're a student of the cycle, then you can position yourself throughout the different stages of the cycle to capitalize on those opportunities. And most importantly, what you start doing is as you start forecasting based on those trends, you can actually start getting ahead of the curve and really start implementing different strategies long before. Later on tonight, I'll talk more about what I'm doing right now, but I say, as you'll see my visual, because one of the things I want to show you is I don't just want to talk about cycles. I want to literally show you what is my company doing right now for this year to position, and I'm going to show you by year what buckets we're focusing on, because I think that's probably the most valuable thing that I could share with you. And so really, but some of the things that I'll share with you, they've already been implemented, and they've started about a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
And so they're just now about to come to fruition. Do you follow what I'm saying? So that's the benefit of being in the season, is understanding where you are so that you can prepare for the future.
Perfect.
Yeah, I think one of the things that always inspired me when you talked about the commercial is like obviously that's a goal of ours. I think most of us in here is to own some commercial at some point. But for me, like when I took that and tried to apply it now is building the property management that we're doing. And we had always been doing it, but we never really turned it into like an actual business and running it the way we are now in anticipation of like building some consistent revenue. Whereas, most real estate is always transactional based, and doing it in a different way through the property management. So thanks for the inspiration.
Yeah, man, I'm excited about that. Actually, it's funny you say that because most real estate so-called investors, they're really just transactional. That's all they are. They never really get to the point where they take those earnings from the transactions and actually put them to work for them. And I think that's the biggest misconception about investing. Yeah. You see the guy driving the fancy car, I flipped this house. What he didn't tell you is the countless hours he spent trying to work that deal. Not once did his money really work for him.
Guilty.
Hey, I've been there too, right? I get it. But at some point, I'm glad to hear you're transitioning to develop that passive cash flow, because ultimately that is where financial freedom comes from.
Sure.
And all of the most successful guys that I've worked with, when they've sat to work with me, and I mean some of the guys we work with, the billionaires, and when you're sitting with them, the perspective, the knowledge that they have, they don't care about what kind of returns. If you come there and you say, what a great return, I have a 50% return, they actually back off. Because the number one thing in real estate investments is my money secured? That's the first thing. Then when we get past that, we'll talk what the yield is. But a lot of guys totally, they just don't get it because they think it's the fancy cars, the Instagram Nation pictures. And the reality is most of those guys, when they come to me for funding, I can't even fund them. Because when I look at their bank statements, they don't even have enough reserves for 3 months. So that's to give you a little perspective. So I'm glad you're looking at that.
Yeah, for sure. So Sam, we don't want to neglect you over there. I want to hear your story, how you got into real estate.
No, that's a train wreck.
Let's hear it.
That's exactly, we got to hear it now.
No, for me, actually, guys, I spent 20 plus years in the collection and private investigation field. So right about the time of the crash, it was a good opportunity for me to jump into short sale negotiations.
Okay.
I trained a lot of collectors in and around the Chicagoland area, so it was a natural, if I train these guys, and if I'm doing short sales, that means I'm negotiating with kids I trained, so maybe I got a shot at doing something here. So it was kind of a different entree point in for me, but I also ran into stumbling blocks because there are just too many people out there that I couldn't help. But it wasn't because I couldn't help them, it was because they didn't want to be helped or know how to be helped. So that was kind of demoralizing, really. I mean,
for sure.
The first time I walked away from a homeowner saying, you know what, I'm just going to leave because you haven't followed what I've asked you to do, I must have got back in and out of that car 3 or 4 times to walk back up and say, man, I can't leave them, but my wife also pointed out that, she noticed these little things in our checking account about these trips to the grocery store, Jewel, and what have you. She goes, well, you never come home with any groceries, so what the heck? I was buying them for a lot of the people that I was sitting down talking to because I felt like I got to help. But really what took place after that was I know that real estate was the right venue for me. I just didn't know what seat on the bus, as we say around the office, where the heck do I fit? And it's interesting because, as it turned out, pushing 50 years old, I wind up meeting this character to my right here, who was offering an intern program, actually. I'm considering investing, and it's like, well, okay, I become an investor, and now I'm going to intern with this guy. I mean, I'm really going to get to see what gives. Right. And that's what really turned me on. And honestly, guys, I mean, this is almost a marriage of almost 10 years, and I'm still really trying to find my path because there's so many paths within this, and we get caught with this shiny object stuff.
All the time.
Right? So where the heck do you fit? Right? I mean, it is. That's what happens.
Did Rick start you out with some bandit signs?
You know what? Actually, I probably would have told him there's no way in heck that's going to happen, right? But now, 10 years fast forward, as we're bringing up the new regime of guys, it's those fundamental strategies, and it's just like anything else. I'm an old ball player, and if you follow the fundamentals, you've got a shot.
Yeah.
Right? It's not going to guarantee you, but you're going to give yourself a shot to come back and play again tomorrow. So, and those are the things that we just don't. I'm not willing to do this. As a 50-year-old guy.
I'm too good for that.
Are you?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's I've managed people. I've grown companies and made some dough. It's like, you want me to do what? Right? I mean, that's
tough.
Yeah.
But it's where you got to start. You don't start at the top. Nobody I know. All right, Michael Jordan, Muhammad Ali, all those guys. They weren't great. Always, they worked at it,
right.
and it was that coming back, day in and day out. So
Yeah, a good example of that is, it's a movie, but The Karate Kid.
Yeah.
Having him do the absolute most mundane, ridiculous things that he didn't understand at the time. Even before the wax on, wax off part.
Yeah.
He was having to do like the most mundane stuff to get him in the mindset that
Right.
you're no better than anybody else out there, and that you've got to start at the very, very bottom.
And dude, that's funny that you say that, because the internship program that Rick and his team were running at the time, that's exactly what the 24 of us that were involved in it absolutely thought, why the heck are we doing these things? And it was the same thing that when those of us that graduated ran the next internship, it's like I got to see it through their eyes, right?
Yeah.
It's like, wow, that's exactly what I was saying, right where you're at. But when you get through all of that, there were 36 that we selected, and there's only one that made it out of
I was
that.
going to say, how many people made it through of the 24?
1 out of 36?
Out of the 24 was 2, and then the following term was 1.
Yep.
Not
I like
surprised
that.
at all.
But he's still with us, though.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
That's the cool thing about this.
The ones
right?
who stuck actually are part of literally
awesome.
a powerful tool
Alberto.
in the business.
Yeah, I figured Alberta had to be one of
He's
those.
another one.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's amazing. So, let's talk a little bit about that statistic that we just said. 24-1. That's terrible, right?
It's horrific.
So, it is horrific.
I love
And
hearing that, because that means if you got
Opportunity.
it, you earned it.
Yeah, that's it.
That's
That's
for damn
it.
straight. But what I want to talk about, though, is that people that go take seminars and they go, or they come to TB-RIA, or they come to work with us and they don't make it. Whose fault is it usually? Is it the person that educated them or pointed them in the right direction, or is it the person that didn't take the right amount of action?
It's all about action, guys.
Bingo.
And
I hate that. I hate that.
100% I agree with that. Actually, that's why my daughter Kaylee's here, right?
Boom.
Because she's being
Our
immersed
super
in
special
she's
guest.
she's a multi-millionaire in training right now, right? And I'll tell you a story later of what she is sharp, man. That's why she's here today. We're really gonna get her to the next level. But in fact, when you talked about the Karate Kid, you remember when we were in Canada just recently, we were watching the movie, and I had a chance after all these years. I'm like, wow, these graphics suck. Right? Whoa, wow. But anyway,
Especially
but
you blow it up on a 55-inch TV.
But now, for the first time, I'm having to explain a movie to a 4-year-old, my son, and my daughter, who's 7, who obviously picked up on it pretty quick.
Almost 8.
And almost 8, February, right? And so, but long story short, one of the biggest reasons why a lot of people fail is because it's beneath them. And what ends up happening is you feel like, well, you're starting me here, I should be up here. What they don't realize is that is the journey you have to go through to develop the mental fortitude, the discipline, the focus, the drive, so that when the opportunities come, you now have the strength to be able to withstand and press through the next level. And so what I always say in the seminars, and this is very true, even when we bring people to the office, we look at them straight in the eyes and we'll say, I've met with many people on this table. We've done millions of dollars in deals in that very chair you're sitting in. And 97% of people say only 3% do. What I want to find out today is, which one are you? And I really believe that the people who are serious, they're committed, they're going to pay the price. And those that tell me, hey, I'm reading this book, I'm watching this, that's all great to be obviously getting information. But now what I've learned is anybody who's listening to 50,000 different things is not learning anything.
Bingo.
So what I tell people is this: if you are not living what you tell me that you're studying, you didn't learn it.
Yeah.
And that's really what it comes down to.
So I had a moment of, I guess it was after Rod came in, I kind of had a little bit of a breakdown, honestly. Transparent, right? Kind of get choked up over it.
I'll get the tissues.
Thanks for making it less awkward.
I feel like last year I got the shiny object syndrome really bad, really bad. And we went on damn.
That's why I love you, bro.
Went on vacation and just like got away. And really thought about what I wanted to do. And I realized kind of one of the things that I did last year was that my goal is always to read 52 books a year. And I found that was one of the most ludicrous things I've ever strived to do in my life.
Yeah.
A book a week, right? Because I read a lot of personal development books, a lot of sales books, trainings books, and stuff like that. And I finally threw my hands up and was like, what the hell am I doing?
Right.
Because I would read books and I would get inspired by them. And the next thing I know, I'm failing because I can't implement any of it.
Exactly.
And so I failed.
Greg, he's reading another book.
No, I'm not. I'm reading Think and Grow Rich for the second time already this year.
Yep.
I'm not doing that anymore. I've picked out 12 books for the entire year to read, and I'm going to master those books and put them into action. We talked about it just a few minutes ago about how I would read Cardone and I would read this person. I would want to do this planner and this thing. And I focused on one person right now that I'm following, and that's Darren Hardy. Between Darren Daly's every day, between his planner, the insane productivity, the ludicrous modules, I'm focused on one guy, and I'm going to focus on learning from other people because that is, and I had this breakdown, and I talked about this in this group that I'm a part of called 52 Books a Year. And I said, y'all are nuts. I'm like,
Bro, that is one of the most insane things I've ever heard. A book a week? Like,
Yeah.
you got a business to
commendable,
run.
I did, but I read 35 books last year. That was, I came short of my goal, but like I literally was all over the place.
Right.
And it showed when we looked at our bank statements at the end of the day.
Yep.
And we're just like, what the hell did we even do last year?
Yep.
And so we are like at least I'm ultra focused on one thing this year, and that is basically learning from Darren Hardy and a very select few people out there that have been there, done that. Tony Robbins, Napoleon Hill, John Maxwell, and those guys, stuff like that. So, sorry I got a little there for you, but
thank you for
that guy right there, man.
Thanks for being straightforward. And one of the things that I want to say about that is, I don't know if you remember, Sam, we had a guy come to the office, really sharp guy, very eloquent, probably everybody would have hired him. And as he started talking for 45 minutes about what he knows, and I mean, most people would have hired this guy because he just said the right things, he looked the part. And so he's like, whoa, and I've heard of you, you're a successful guy. And so I'm like, oh, whatever, thanks. And so I stayed quiet because in my spirit I knew that's the problem with that. You start getting puffed up with knowledge, but applied knowledge is where the power is. Knowledge has nothing to do with it until you apply it. And so at the end he says, well, could you give me some advice? And I said, yes, grab every book you just referenced and burn the hell out of it.
Yeah.
Burn it. You remember that one?
And
Burn it.
I not only remember that, man, I was just engaging with him on Facebook today.
Oh, were you?
Yeah, and I don't want to use his name, but it's
all right.
I mean, it's just,
So I told him.
That's what I always say too. Like, you can watch when you have to actually apply stuff too. That's where you figure out who knows what. You can watch 1,000,001 videos like on how to change your brakes on YouTube.
Yeah.
Go out and try to do it.
Yeah.
And then when one little hiccup happens and you don't know how to troubleshoot because you really have no actual experience, now we figured out.
Now you know why that guy got paid the big bucks.
Exactly.
Yep, absolutely. And so that's what we told him. And obviously, we ultimately didn't work with him. And I said, when you go home, burn every freaking book and start doing one thing. And you'll be amazed at how all of a sudden, within a couple of years, you'll be at a whole new level just because you removed all the clutter, all of the distraction, and you really focus on mastering your craft. And that's really what this is all
OUTFAST
about.
Realty bonfire.
There it is, man.
Yeah.
That's it.
Celebration at the
That's
end
it,
of
Go look at my
man.
bookshelf in there. I have like 100 books on that shelf. It's not the way to do it.
Yeah.
Jeremy and I were talking a few minutes ago about everybody that shows up for the events, right? Every month. You see the same faces. Now, for a couple of years, I've been coming back and forth for a couple of years, right? I see some of the same people that haven't taken a step forward yet, but they're there just hanging out.
Yeah.
Right? And it's that same example. There's going to be 2 or 3 or 4 in the room. When I was in Chicago last month, I went to an event, and the speaker was my friend, so we kind of did a little funny, taking a cue from Rick. We took 97 seats, put them on one side of the room. We put 3 seats on the other side of the room. And we had 3 people sitting there. And as we're talking through the course of the afternoon, we said, now everybody's wondering, what's up with the separation? I said, that's going to tell you there's going to be 3 of you that walk out, maybe 3 of you that walk out of this room that are going to do something with the information that you learned tonight. The rest of you, just wasted an hour
Might
and a
have
half
to
of
do
your
that
time.
tonight.
Call the Godfrey Hotel right now, Taylor. I'm dead serious. Call the Godfrey Hotel and tell them to change the room. 97 on one side and 3 on the other. Please
I'm telling you.
have them do it right now.
But
I'm dead
FYI,
serious.
one of those is this
You know
this
what,
little
though?
girl right here is
yeah.
going to sit in one of those.
It feels good just to go to the seminar, though. You know, like you just sign up for a
97 chairs
gym,
on one
you
side.
automatically feel better. Like, man, I'm gonna get it.
It is. I mean,
Mentally,
it's,
you're there. It
it's-
feels good. And then
Yeah.
you're like,
Yeah.
yeah, I'll go tomorrow.
you know what? It's that pain point, man. I mean,
is.
really, if the pain's not driving you enough to want to change it, right? We're not
Yeah.
going to do it. And
Yep.
some of us never figure that out. Some of us get too late before it's like the light bulb comes on. I mean, I fell into that category as well. I was comfortable in my life for a long time, and then all of a sudden a shift happens. It's like, oh, did not see that coming.
Yeah.
I thought the gravy was going to come forever. So that's what happens.
Transitions.
There it is,
Absolutely,
man.
man.
That's the shift. That's what's going to make a difference this year.
Yeah.
And I think you'll see it. Like we simplified. I mean, the
Bingo.
premise of the actually when I was coming here, just so that you guys know, so this is almost like
Okay.
I'm saying it before it happens, and you'll see what happens. So the last couple of years, even the last year when I came here, I'm just following my heart when I really feel like I'm being led to do something that's completely crazy or out of the norm. And so last year I was preparing for the forecast, and like my whole script changed. I felt like, nope, you need to talk about Joseph. And I'm like, I am not going to a secular place and I'm going to bring up some Bible story. This is nuts. But I did it, and it was incredible. I really had a great time. I still get feedback from that one event last year.
Yeah.
This year, I was preparing for the forecast. We have a 40-page report our economist did. I had it all ready, and I felt like, no, scrap it. Like,
Yeah.
we're not even going to talk about it. You're going to focus on, it doesn't matter what's going on in the market. What matters is, what are you going to do right now in order to position yourself? So literally, we're going to simplify it. It's going to be earn it, save it, and invest it. And if you do those 3 things, I guarantee you'll be successful in the real estate market 2019. And so I'm telling you, it's going to be fun. We're going to shift some stuff. And there's one little story in the end that I believe is for at least one person in that room that I literally couldn't even sleep last night because it literally popped up and I had to change my presentation. So
Yeah, like last
I'm
time
excited.
it was like, just you get people tears at the end with like the stories and the way you talk. And there wasn't there one presentation where like he spoke just briefly at the end. Was that last year, January?
No.
The previous one. It was the
Previous
previous
one.
one.
You like someone did a long presentation, then Rick came in for like a couple minutes at the end and just crushed it.
That was actually 3 years ago.
That
was 3 years ago
It's been a while.
at the Holiday Inn.
Yeah.
But
So,
yeah.
so let me ask you this. You said you got started with the wholesaling thing.
Yep.
And that always interests me because that's something that, like you said, you don't have a lot of resources. You just go out. It's a straight hustle game for the most part. Talk a little bit about what that was like when you got going with it versus what it's like now to just get started with it. What are the similarities? What are the differences?
Yeah.
Advice for people out there that are, trying to get their foot in the door.
That's a really good question.
Yeah, it is.
For $19.95, I'll tell you. No, I'm just kidding. No, but
Discount on tonight for
yeah,
$9.97.
that's it. There it is. There it is. But actually, no. So really, what's interesting about this particular market climate, maybe it's not a peak growth market, but we're still in a growth cycle right now, which is actually around close to anyway where I was when I first got started. What didn't exist back then was the technology that we currently have right now.
Okay.
I mean, when I tell you that I had to work my butt off knocking on doors and getting deals, that part of the hustle of acquisition, I mean, you really have to hustle right now, especially in today's market, because there's so many people marketing. There's so many people out there that if you don't get out there and get that opportunity, it's gone, right? There's too many competitors. And I had that. I mean, I actually kind of looked like, no pun intended for anybody else, don't want to disrespect anyone, but I kind of looked like a Jehovah's Witness. Going there, knocking on the door, hey, I know
Been
you're
there,
in
done that.
foreclosure. I don't know how to make this clear, but I'm here to help you, right? And so, but it was that hustle really that got me going. But what really changed the game for me, and I think this is something that should really, if you're a wholesaler, you should really pay attention. A lot of wholesalers are looking to make 20, 30 grand right now, just kill it in one deal. What changed the game for me completely was when I started putting myself in the shoes of my end buyer, which is an investor. And I said, how would I feel if John Smith over here, this investor, gave me the property, I bought it, I went through all of the hassle, paid all the interest payments and everything else, and when I sell the property, I make less money than the guy who sold it to me in the first place. And the moment that shifted for me, I created a value proposition for those investors. I started actually studying, how can I add value to the investor? And what's interesting is I got to the place where I would, back then again, now we have the tools, you hit a button and it's all incredible. Well, back then I would have a spreadsheet and print it out, and I would have my analysis, and here's a 5-year projection for cash flow. I'd go to property managers and get a rental analysis from them with a quote. Contracts, I mean, it was a full-on package. I'd go there with a folder and hand it to them and start teaching them why I did that. And I would even tell them, here's what I'm going to charge you for it. And my range never went past $7,000. But what I found by doing that was from $5,000 to $7,000 on a deal is that these guys kept coming back. Right. And it got to the point that I built so much trust, this is no joke, that I would do a webinar. I didn't even have to talk to them anymore at this point. I would do a webinar and I would say, guys, I'm going to go and I'm going to negotiate a project that I'm working on right now. We'll probably have 20, 30 properties by the time we're done. And this is how I moved from like 2 or 3 baby deals, struggling, to literally have 30 deals in one day sell. And what I would say is, you guys know what I'm about. You know what we're going to represent at this stage. But because I had been doing this consistently for so long, by the time we got to that stage, no joke, I would say, I need you guys to send an earnest money deposit with an actual agreement that we put together. And people would wire earnest money deposit with a signed agreement with no address.
Jeez.
Just because they knew you were bringing the...
They knew that when Rick says he's going to do this, it's such a turnkey solution that I trust Rick. I'm going to give him my money. And so because of that structure, while all these little, I call them donkeys, are running around trying to, make 30 grand on a deal, I would just make a phone call and say, guys, this is coming, send your wires. And literally, one of the best things was, I'll never forget this, on a conference call, on a webinar, running late, because we were in a meeting. And so I jump in, I'm talking to them, I talked about the situation. I said, everybody just send me an email so that I can at least contact the title company, let them know that these are the ones that are going to happen. And literally one after another. We sold 23 properties without an address in one call in less than 30 minutes that I was running late to. That's what changed the
game. You guys taking notes over there?
That's what changed the game. So that's and if you look at what we've done with raising capital, I mean, right now we're looking to deploy $50 million just in the private lending sector in Florida alone. Jeez. Right? So look at the difference, right? So now as a lender, why do institutions that are having billions of dollars raised, why do they want to work with us? Same thing, because we've already duplicated our system. We put them first. We protect them. We put together the right structure. And next thing you know, they're just like, here, here's more, help me. And that goes back to a very simple fundamental that people forget. If you're a good steward with little, you'll be entrusted with much. But if you're a bad steward with the little, even that will be taken from you. And that's what I think most people don't want to hear, because they want that I'm getting rich overnight. And it takes time to build that kind of system.
Very good.
Yep.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah,
You got that?
The webinar model always fascinated me.
Yeah.
I think that it's. I was just talking with somebody on my way over here actually, and he's in the financial sector. But I said the webinar thing. If you have great communication skills, you're a decent looking human being and all of that, you kind of got a leg up on people.
Guess you're screwed.
In that regards. Yeah, I'm on
he
podcast.
feels
You know what, man?
For a reason here. Okay, so is that the only thing that you've done with like talk a little bit about the webinar thing in terms of what it is you guys do, and because that's a webinar is something that anybody listening could try to put together themselves as well.
Yes.
And what are you seeing with that? If there's somebody's trying to get their foot in the door with that.
Yeah. So, I mean, what I tell people is, number one, you have to start building the demand, right? You have to develop the relationship and start qualifying those people. And then as you refine that list of people that look like their potential, then you start focusing on just developing a relationship with them. Because in this business, when you're talking money, it's all about a relationship. It's either I trust you and I'll work with you, or I'm just going to use you for what I want, and that's it. Right. And so, you could use the GoToWebinar stuff, like traditional stuff, and just set it up, have a presentation, have a Q&A. I've even done some presentations even in Japan, where I'm actually in Google Hangouts. And I'm just video chatting with people. We're having a conversation. We share our screen. So it doesn't have to be extremely sophisticated. What's important is that you position the presentation to walk them through what is your process, what they can expect from you, what are your standards, and then you question them in the beginning until you have that in place. What else would you want to see? Because we're constantly improving. And so we found that that's a way.
That.
Yeah.
That's a way to engage your client. And they'll tell you, here's what I want to buy. Okay, perfect. Then let's walk through that, right? And to give you perspective, you never quit. Like, we're doing business right now. I'm so grateful and thankful that we made a lot of changes this year. There's even bigger changes than ever. But the reality is, if I want to retire, I can. And that's an awesome statement to make.
Wow.
I don't think I could ever do that because I'm so crazy about what I do. But at the same time, and that's why I'm bringing my daughter these things, because she's the next gen. I got to pour into her right now. She's got to be ahead of everybody else.
She can be the one on front of this.
That's it, man.
Yep.
That's it. She says, I own it. That's what she's going to say. Right? And so, but from the perspective of that, I mean, March 18th, I'm going to be in Brazil in front of 300-400 investors presenting to them. Why? Because again, you constantly have to be building relationships. Now, why is Rick going to Brazil or other countries? I'll tell you later.
Okay. All right.
There we go.
I like it. So you guys are hard money lenders. What's the number one question you guys get asked all the time?
Rate and term.
Exactly.
Rate and term. Right.
So how do you guys do that? Because obviously there's a process to that. So explain to you as a hard money lender how you evaluate how you're going to lend money.
Yeah, so what's interesting about us, and this is a really important point to make, there's a lot of lenders right now that are coming in out of the woodwork. Yeah. They're really brokers, is what they are. You know, they've basically gotten to a place now where they're brokering business. A lot of the big hedge funds right now are parking their cash in private sector because you can get a pretty good yield with a short-term period of time while they're waiting for the massive whale to come back, which is basically the non-QM product, which ultimately they can securitize and do it in the billions instead of hundreds of millions. And so there's a lot of guys out there that are just checking the box. And so what we look at is we actually have the capital. So can we play in lower rates and different terms? Yeah, because we also have those banks that come to us to buy it from us. The difference is, and this is what I don't agree with, my philosophy isn't I'm going to sell you the very best terms that you may be able to get. And that's what a lot of private lenders do right now, or hard money lenders. They'll say, oh yeah, starting at X rate with just 2 points, and here's the thing. But when you get to the deal and you actually analyze it, last minute, they have to change your loan amount because those core fundamentals in the box never fit your deal in the first place. But you were so naive as a regular investor that you thought, well, he said I'm going to get 90% of purchase, 100% of the rehab budget, but you didn't look at your own deal to say, yes, but it's subject to evaluation. And this valuation would never make 65% of ARV or 70% of ARV in the first place.
Haven't seen those deals in a long time.
Right. So when you look at the model, when I talk to a guy, say you want 90 and 100, we've got it if you got the experience. But the reality is, can your deal justify it? And the reality is no. So I don't work that way. So what I would rather do is let me analyze the deal with you and let my team tell you, hey, this is a good deal, and based on this, we're probably going to do this. And sometimes it may not be as aggressive, but the reality is 9 out of 10, we don't really have those kind of hiccups. And if there's an issue with value, we challenge it head on. And so I think that's the difference, and that's how we deal with it. When a guy tells me, well, I want the lowest rate, 9 out of 10, when I say, okay, that's great, I'll be happy to give you the very best rate that we can give you. The question is, though, how bankable are you? Right. And then, well, when I look at your credit, what am I going to find? When I do my background check, how many felonies am I going to find? Right? And so you will be amazed how many times somebody comes demanding in my office about something, and by the time we actually do our discussion, the guy's like, "Whoa, man, 12% is perfect. I'll put 30% down. Just don't look." Right? So it's that's how we deal with it.
Exactly. That's why I wanted you to answer that question that way, because I knew that was how you were going to answer it. But it's one of those. It's that thing that the loudest guy in the room is usually the weakest one in the room.
Absolutely, it's true.
100%. I'm sure you guys see that all day, every day, because hard money lenders are. I don't know who is watching or listening to this podcast has been to a real estate big guru seminar. All they talk about is how you can get hard money at this and that and this and that. So you guys probably get blown up all day, every day.
Yep.
And Melissa probably answers that phone 100 times a day, trying to answer that question best she can for you guys.
Yeah.
So that's what I love about you guys. You guys are really transparent about what you guys do and how you guys evaluate it. So, and you guys have so many tools. We don't have time to go into it on this podcast, obviously, but there's so many tools that you guys offer to help them, educate them through that process.
So absolutely.
It's really cool.
I think the point, Greg, really in a lot of ways, and we do get a lot of calls, and you can almost tell so-and-so was in town pitching their fix and flip program because the call that you get,
Yep.
Hey, I'm looking to build a relationship with a lender. I mean, it's a script.
The same
I've got a team of private lenders backing me with gap funding.
Absolutely.
I know the drill. I was there. I did that. Okay.
Exactly. And tens of thousands of dollars. But ultimately, what we find out, and it's been an interesting view from the lender's seat to see all the deals that come in and the individuals that are presenting the deals and what they know, what they don't know, and the things that they're not looking for. We talked about seasons earlier. They don't get it. I mean, who knows? Why do I need to know about market cycles, man? Just fund my deal.
Yep.
I don't want to hear about this stuff.
So is that,
right?
Is that what you would say? I mean, so when you guys have all these people approaching you, I'm sure you're seeing a handful of very common mistakes.
Yes.
To scratch your head at. Is that one of them?
Yeah, more often than not, right? I mean, it's
What
There's a
what else
variety
is
of
there?
mistakes.
Like,
There's a
what
variety.
are the common ones that you're
Well,
like, I don't understand why I keep seeing?
See, I don't like really talking about this. See, here's why. Because I'm collecting all this information as an investor.
Right.
I lend money to learn from other people's mistakes.
Sure. Right.
At the same time, it's one of our strategies, right?
Gotcha.
I'm not going to mention anyone in the room, right?
See
So,
which direction they're pointing.
right?
Check, edit, please.
Yeah, but the reality is,
Nodding.
yeah. But from my perspective, and here's the thing too, though, is I'm not perfect. I'm going to make mistakes, and so
Right.
if I can leverage my business in a place where we're making money consistently, but then from there I can actually be a student and say, look, I don't know everything, so maybe Greg just learned something that I can learn from, so that I can avoid the next mistake.
Yep.
But I think one of the biggest things, and in fact, we've had several clients where we said, based on loan to value, I got you. But the reality is, you're taking a major gamble. If this thing's fall sideways, Rick wins, but you're betting it all on the come, man. And let me tell you right now, I've seen it come and go. And so we've had clients come back then begging later, like, what can I do? And we're like, we told you.
Yeah.
Do you remember that email? And most of it is, every single time they always get extremely aggressive on what the future value of the property is going to be. That's number one. There's a variety of things, but most of them, the biggest one that scares me, and there's guys right now, I'm not going to say any names, that are on social media, like, we're killing it and this, that, and the other. And I'm like, bro, you still owe $2,000 for insurance. And, oh, man, I'm struggling right now, man. And I'm like, I am watching your Facebook account right now as you are driving a freaking super expensive car, man. Are you kidding me? Like, you just did a thing about balling. Like, take the cash out of that watch you just bought and pay me my $2,000. And it's incredible to see that, right? And it's a lot of these guys haven't really put together an investment analysis for their project. So they think I'm going to make 20, 30 grand. They don't analyze the potential of what if I don't, or how much time do I have in this deal before it starts eating up my profit. And so in many cases, because they didn't plan, that's how they fail. And so we call them out a lot on that. And that's one of the biggest mistakes. So like, yeah, we'll make money. We'll get out of here in 90 days. 8, 9, 10 months later, going into 12, Rick, I need an extension. Can I rent the property now? And I'm like, didn't we talk about this?
Yeah.
And so that's one of the biggest mistakes. Everybody thinks they're too big for their own britches, instead of saying, hey, investing is about making sure we're making the right choice. It's all about the deploying of the capital, right? Sure. Your capital allocation makes everything.
On this topic, let's talk about the craziest deal you guys have ever done. And is it the one that I had in with, Mr. KW, or we have worse ones than that one?
Okay, so you have to define the category, because we see some crazy stuff.
Okay.
But I
give us like 2 stories.
Okay,
then,
I'll give you 2.
ones.
So there's one right now that I can think of. And the guy's from Tampa. The guy's a hustler. No disrespect, but I just find it funny when people, because for me is this. Look, one of the guys in our office actually used to be an intern. Here's what he says. If you're cocky, you better be perfect. You better be perfect.
I already know who you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're cocky, you better be perfect, because everybody makes mistakes. So you should always be humble, so that when you can make a mistake, you can actually live up to owning it.
What did I do today, guys?
When you put yourself, exactly. When you put yourself up here, it's very hard to come back down and say, my bad. So the situation is, when guys come to me, all feathered up, these peacocks over here, thinking they got it. So we literally had a conference call. Oh, I didn't. No pun intended. Actually, you look really good though. You're a humble peacock there. Humble peacock.
That was great.
For the listeners, our homeboy Jeremy here is
I wasn't
wearing a
even
very
thinking about this.
peacock-looking scarf actually today.
Oh, that's awesome. But the reality,
the word was funny.
Yeah. So there's a guy here in Tampa, right? There's a guy here in Tampa a few years ago that we were working with, and one of the things that makes us different, again, we have different products. So if you're performing at a certain level, we might partner with you, like we've done. Mm-hmm. We don't just lend money; we're investors. And so in this case, we were getting pitched this whole thing about becoming a partner in a deal. And so we looked at the project. It was in St. Petersburg. That's all I'm going to say.
Oh, I know this deal now. Okay, go ahead.
So we told them, hey, there's a major concern for us in this property, and here's A, B, C, D, E, F, G, Y. And going down to this list, we also said, these are some things that we're concerned about with title and everything else. And he's like, listen, man, I've done all these deals, and I've got all this experience. And I'm like, oh, this is going to suck. But at the same time, I was so curious, and I'm like, let me just give him enough rope to see if he chokes with it. And sure enough, we do the deal. I lowered the loan to value because, again, and I said, here's what's going to happen. If this thing doesn't turn, you're going to owe me X. Not once did I get a phone call back. His partner at least was humble enough to call me and say, Rick, I am so sorry. But when we went to actually work on the roof, the whole house caved in and fell. So all we have is a lot. So that was one of the craziest deals where I said, well, understand, I have collateral on some of these other deals. So you will take care of this, or I'm going to take all the other ones too. But they actually, at least to give them respect,
I remember
they
that.
did pay me off from that perspective. So that was a good thing. But it proved, don't tell me that you've been in the rodeo and you've done all this and you know what's going on when some of the key fundamentals were in your face from the first, and then you see them on Facebook later going, here's a new development project I'm doing. Yeah, it's called, I didn't do my diligence. I lost my house. I have to build a new house.
Got a brand new vacant lot here.
That's
This was the plan
Yeah.
all along.
exactly. So
Always.
So
I
I say
remember
that.
that.
Going and decided to demo the property instead,
So I'm just being honest.
I know, I
that's,
remember that.
That's the reality. So, and we've had some other crazy deals like that too. But the reality, that was one I'm just, as I think of in Tampa, St. Pete area.
We're
That,
just changing with the seasons here.
but yeah. So that was an interesting one because it's not fun to get a phone call saying, hey, that house that you have collateral
okay.
here, it doesn't exist.
Yeah, it's gone.
Yeah. So, but again, in their defense, they did pay
Yes,
me
they
off.
did.
So at least they kept their word. Another one, and this actually was a learning lesson for Rick. I had a borrower of mine that we've been working together for years. In fact, I think in 2012 alone, we did close to 120 properties together. So like we had a great relationship before. Cause he changed some things, let's just say, and that's what really had us pause our investment with him. So long story short, about now this one, almost 2 years ago now, we got involved in a project, which I believe you know about, Loggerhead. I believe is the name. Is it Loggerhead? I think it's. But anyway, it's in Brandon. It's a really nice area.
Okay.
Beautiful house community. I think, in fact, you guys may have had an email a while back with somebody trying to wholesale it. So I bent my rule twice. So this, shame on Rick. So now I'm going to make fun of Rick right now. So basically, because of the relationship, our analyst caught something with the market, and it's crazy because in the same exact subdivision, the value of this property was about $600,000. But for whatever reason, with the software we use, the heat map was saying there's something wrong within just across the street.
Okay.
And so we're like, how is that possible? It's the same gated community. I mean, everything's, and sure enough, if you're just one street over in this subdivision, your ARV is close to 450 with all the
Oh, I
comps.
do know about this.
You remember
Yes,
that one?
I do now. Okay.
So
Yep.
that was one. So
I was going to
luckily,
be the buyer on that one, and I was like, wait a second. This doesn't make sense.
That's why I remembered. You
Yeah.
know it. So, and I'm trying to bring everything to where you guys are here because I like real stuff here. So,
Yeah.
So here we are on this project, and I said, listen, honestly, I just don't feel comfortable. There's something shady going on, and I said you would have to probably reduce it by $105,000.
exactly what I said.
So he went out, hit him upside the head, and somehow he comes back. Well, he did it. So I kind of had said I would do it. So then I kind of got stuck with saying, okay, well, I gave my word. I'm going to do this deal. But I still don't feel like there's something wrong with this deal.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, he's like, well, I'm just going to try to turn it and sell it. So why don't we do this? Since we're partnered, could you just, find ways to cut costs? So, you're technically an owner in this project, Rick. You have a mortgage recorded. Can we save money on the actual title insurance as a lender since we have owner's insurance? And that is a big no-no for me as a lender. And guess what did I do? A stupid Puerto Rican Rick learned a great lesson the first time in years. And my daughter, I love you. So what does Rick do? I'm like, you know what? I gave my word. Let's just get this thing done. Fine, who cares? I got to deploy it. So we do this $350,000 project. I'm sorry, it was $320,000. Do the deal. I figured, who cares? We got insurance, right? Sure enough, it ends up being a scam.
Oh, no.
And the actual guy who initially owned the property with his wife stole the house from his wife because they were getting divorced. They forged a signature as they quitclaimed the property to a lady or another guy, and that wholesaler sold it to us.
Oh,
we got
no.
title, but we got owner's title. We didn't get lender's title insurance. And so literally we lost $23,000 in principal and waited over 2 years, almost, or a year and a half actually.
Oh, man.
Till we're just now getting our money. It just went to court December. And so if you can imagine, like, that was a major hurdle. So looking at it now, my attorney's like, Rick, why in the world did you break like the cardinal rule here? Like, this is lending 101. And I'm like, well, I wanted to help. And that's the reason why now I'm like, these are the fundamentals.
you're not working
Stick
with him
to them.
anymore.
It doesn't matter. No, we're not. No. Here's the thing. It's not that I won't, because what I've learned too over the years is you got to give people grace.
Sure.
Right. So what I tell them is, if you fix this and you show me your character, we're going to be doing business, because at least in some of these cases, some of these scars that you
How
develop,
people handle the mistake.
that's
is very
more
telling
important.
A lot of times.
Exactly. So for me, there's guys I've worked with who actually screwed up. But in this scenario, I said, it's on you. Let's find out what happens. So we'll see. If I get that 23 grand back, we may be back in business, but now with a whole new set of guidelines specifically geared towards this. So that was a lesson. That was Rick's mistake. I should have known better. And sure enough, I felt like God just punished me. Like, yeah, you got cocky. Like, yeah, I'll just do it. Yeah, just do it and watch what happens. The one deal that I've ever done with no lender's insurance. And it's the one deal that gets the claim.
That's what are the chances?
So,
Where are we at on time?
Time to wrap up.
Okay.
Any announcements, Greg?
I got one more question for you guys, and we're gonna wrap it up. So, if for those that are listening, it's my favorite question I get to ask on my Flipping Real Estate Like the Pros podcast. What's the one thing you know now that you wish you knew when you started?
oh man, that's a loaded question. How much time we got? But what I would really say to people is this: when I first got into the industry, it was about I wanted to make something big. I really wanted to do something big with my life. And I thought that the only way to do it was to be the owner, to go build this monster empire. Looking back, there's two things that I would have shifted. Number one, I would have really defined what it means to be an investor, because I feel like I started backwards. I immediately walked in transactional, and it's hard to transition when you're stuck with day-to-day grind. Yeah. Had I been an investor, I would have said, here's the grind, and here's what I'm going to do with the profits from the grind. And over the next 2 years, here's the positive cash flow I'm going to build. That should have been the strategy. And then a monster empire doesn't matter, because when you're making 10 grand a month without doing anything, guess what? You're free to do whatever you want, as long as your cost of living doesn't exceed that $10,000. And so I wish I would have had that mentality going in from the start in order to do that. And the second part is, I wish that pride, I would tell myself, if I can go back, say, Rick, don't be proud and think that you have to be the entrepreneur. Looking at a couple opportunities I had, I should have literally, and this is me, I own a company. I should have literally aligned myself with a guy who already had a business back then, and it was in place. It was new, but it had opportunity. I should have went in there, doubled down on my value. I would have become a partner anyway. I guarantee it, because of the way I work, right? But at the end of the day, I would have bypassed 7 years of struggle building something to a whole new level when I could have built it inside of somebody else's model that they had already built. And that's something people don't teach. What I tell people is, if you really think about it, you can go into a vision that already exists, a business that's already working, and take it to a whole new level. And that value makes you invaluable to that company. And they make you a partner. They give you a whole division. So now you've bypassed 10 years of building a startup company, and you're able to leverage yourself and go to a whole new level with resources that you would have never had. So that's something I would have told myself, and I guarantee you, we would have been managing $500 million cash had I done that.
Would you have listened though?
Back then, no, right? No, but now, looking at it from that perspective, I think that is the real key. And I have a few studs that have come to my office over the years that have actually done that, and I'm looking back, going, wow, how smart is that? I mean, here's this guy. I'm taking all the bullets, and this guy here has taken a whole division to a whole new level. He's a junior partner, but man, this guy's benefiting from all the credibility, all the things that we sacrifice for. And I mean, he's making an empire now. He's like, hey, in the next 10 years, I'll be making $2 million a year. That's the goal. And I'm sitting here going, man. Yep. So that's something I would definitely challenge people.
All right.
Cool. Very cool.
Yeah. Love it. Because you guys hiring? Not kidding.
You have to be an intern first.
Exactly.
I'm so sick of it. Yeah.
Systems and leverage, guys. Systems and leverage.
Mm-hmm. That's what it is. Yep. Well, that's what Jeremy and I. Everybody. If you guys don't know, my wife and I are expecting our first kid. Sure. So Jeremy and I have had this conversation. We have about 3.5 months to finish this business, systems, processes, procedures, because when that baby comes out, I'm not going to be here every day.
Right.
Not at all, really, for the first month or so. Mm-hmm. So we've got to hunker down and figure this system and process out. So that's literally what we've been talking about, is getting that done.
Yeah, it's critical. Yeah. And not only that, bring your kids up in it as well as they grow up. That's, you see my daughter here. I mean, she's been in the office. She tried to steal my own staff last year. It was ridiculous.
She'd hold a meeting without you.
Yeah, she's in the boardroom with a couple people. That's and actually, awesome. You remember that one? And she's sitting here well, how much does my dad pay you? I'll pay you double if you do this for me. And I'm like, what? What are you doing? Who's going to pay for that? She's like, you, of course.
Leverage.
She's around the business a little too often.
I love it. Well, thank you guys for coming in. Appreciate you guys always.
Always a pleasure,
all the knowledge you guys bring, the expertise is fantastic, and the realness that you guys bring, authenticity. So we'll see you guys on the next podcast.
Hooah.
Thanks, Greg.